again, everyone, and welcome to Trekyards One Hit Wonders. Today we have, as always, myself, Captain Foley, Samuel Cockings.
Hello.
And the ever-awesome Doug Drexler joining us for a special episode. Do you want to tell us what ship we're going to be looking at, Doug?
The Enterprise J, of course.
That's
what I've been told. Enterprise J.
Yeah, and that's from the 26th century, season 3 of Enterprise, an episode called Azadi Prime.
I just want to say that, as I mentioned to you guys, in 600 years, they may have expanded on the alphabet, and J may mean something that is not the same as what we think it is. So we have to take everything with a grain of salt here.
Cool.
So what's interesting about this episode is we're doing this our first Enterprise, and yet we're starting with the last one chronologically seen. Bit strange, but because Doug's on, we're doing it first. Well, first of all, I've got some facts for you, Doug. So it was listed as having a launch date of stardate 230827.10, which I converted because I'm a bit of a geek online. It was in fact launched on October 29th, 2553 at 9:23.
These are fan extrapolations? I think is absolutely fine because we don't have a writing staff anymore. There's no show being made. So it's up to the fans to fill this stuff out.
So in terms of scale, the ship was around 2 miles long, as Mr. Doug Drexler told us earlier, 3,210 meters. Right. That is a beast.
I don't think it's that large, really. Honestly, I run into a lot of that on the internet where people freak out. They say 2 miles, that's absurd. But if you are a reader of science fiction and you don't just watch science fiction on television, you'll know that in huge, enormous ships is not a strange thing. I mean, there's ships that are many times bigger than that. And even in the Star Trek universe, we've seen alien races who can build machines like a Dyson sphere, for instance. 2 miles seems like a lot in Star Trek terms, but the whole idea is that the J is supposed to be, a far-flung future date. So that means you've got to stretch things to the point where people are going, that's ridiculous, because that's what makes it futuristic. It's hard to believe.
We've got some comparison numbers. Just to finish off the exact dimensions. So like we said, 3,210 meters long, width of 2,295, and a height of 425. If you compare this to other ships in the Star Trek universe, as we always do, because 2 miles sounds like a big ship, but obviously we see the Sovereign as quite a large ship. In fact, the Sovereign class, which is the Enterprise E, was only 685 meters. So that's the Enterprise J is almost over four times the length. But we've seen some other ships in the Trek universe that are roughly the same size. The Doomsday Machine, which as we saw in TOS was massive, was only 2,700 meters, and the Borg Cube is 3,000 meters. So the Enterprise J is bigger than a Borg Cube. Imagine that shot from Best of Both Worlds, and it's just Jesus.
Those poor Borg. They go whimpering away. The J it's a multi-generational type ship, and it really is like its own. I mean, they used to describe the original Enterprise. Roddenberry described it in Charlie X. It's described as it's a whole city in space, Charlie. But honestly, I mean, the original Enterprise is small compared to a city.
So let's finish off facts. The ship consists of 66 decks and a crew complement of 825.
Okay. Well, I've never stopped to figure out the decks. I mean, and the crew complement and stuff like that. Because when you're working on a show, you've got a lot on your plate. There's a lot that has to be done, and it has to be done in almost no time. I mean, we may hear about the whole idea of it, in about 2 weeks from the point where it's going to shoot. And as far as the design goes, I mean, often Herman would come in, Zimmerman, our production designer, come in and say, I need some conceptual stuff to take to a meeting the day after tomorrow. You don't get weeks or months to do a design. Part of the job requirement is being able to think fast and move fast, but also try to distill what you think the needs of the story are. And that necessarily doesn't always mean the most logical thing in the world either. I mean, do I think that there's going to be a bridge like we're used to seeing on the Enterprise J? No, I really don't.
So what do you think of the number 825 as a crew for a city?
That's tiny.
Ship?
That's what we thought, because there's over 1,000 people aboard the D, but I think that includes families too. So maybe the 825 is just officers and crew.
Oh, it could be officers and crew. But I mean, like I said, we only figure out the stuff that we need for the show and if we are given a good reason to go back, if we have to figure it out, we will. But I can tell you off the top of my head, a population of a million doesn't seem out of line, really.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now, I got a question then, as far as Roddenberry wanting to advance things. We saw in Voyager that they had the biomimetic gel packs, which sped up the processing speed. So what would you speculate that the J might have being that far advanced in the future?
Well, the gel packs, I doubt it would be anything like that. For all we know, the ship is using the synapses of every person on board the ship to do its computations.
For the weapons on this beauty consist of 10 type antipolaron beam emitters, 4 biphasic pulse cannons, 3 quantum singularity torpedo tubes, and 4 chronoton torpedo tubes. These torpedoes were in a state of temporal flux, so they could pass through shields easily. They're incredibly deadly and very effective.
Any thoughts on that, Doug?
Well, like I said, that sounds really great, based on Star Trek as we know it and kind of where Star Trek is stuck. No, honestly, I mean, I think probably anything anyone has thought of is not advanced enough. I find that most people, and this is not, to knock anybody or anything, but I think that most fans and producers and writers and directors and everything on Star Trek don't push it far enough because they want to keep it within that arena that everyone's familiar with. Mm-hmm. And I think that I rarely see anything that's thought up on the fan sites. And like I said, not just fans, I'm talking producers and writers and stuff like that. They don't really go utterly science fiction. It stays within a certain arena of Star Trek that doesn't necessarily evolve the way things really would. And I think that's okay. I mean, it's not real. It isn't real life. It's a television show here, but I see Star Trek as, when you do Star Trek, and we always try to on the television series, is that it's a historic drama. Mm-hmm. And if you're going to do Horatio Hornblower, you don't decide that he should have PT boat.
Okay, so no official name was given for the ship in the episode, but it's rumored to be the Celestial class. Although, Doug, I believe you said before you like the Universe class. Do you want to?
That's what I've always called it, Universe class. Celestial class is something somebody on the internet came up with. They like it. I think that they should run with it and have all the fun they want with Celestial class. For me, it was Universe class. I like when Gene did TNG, it was a Galaxy class ship. Now it's a Universe class ship.
That makes perfect sense. That's what I was just going to ask. Like, is that the reason you picked Universe class because it was the definitive exploration class vehicle?
Well, I mean, it suggests that its envelope of its mission envelope encompasses the universe. It's not just our galaxy. That it suggests that they might be able to fold time.
Consisting of a chronographic projector drive, which requires exact spatial and temporal coordinates. Its speed using this is essentially infinite. Mm-hmm. However, a more traditional quantum drive was used as well and had a quantum velocity of 5.95 indefinitely, or a max quantum velocity of up to 7 for 12 hours. I don't know how fast a quantum velocity is, but it's pretty cool.
Yeah, what does that all mean, Doug? What does that mean?
Well, it sounds fun. I mean,
it's technobabble. It's good stuff.
I mean, I think it's really great. I love it that people figure these things out. We've always known that part of the charm of Starfleet vessels is that, and one of the most important rules is that fans, we like it too. I mean, and we're fans, but fans need to be able to look at it and take it apart like a puzzle and see that it kind of fits together and makes sense, and that they could even add to it. And that is part of what's exciting about Star Trek ships.
Another, I think, fan creative information, but you can give us your perspective on it.
Okay, it's a Veterium hull consisting of a 1 centimeter thick tribaltic armor and polaric molecular bonding enhancer, requiring refit only as needed.
Does that get your seal of approval, Doug?
I love it. I love it. I mean, it sounds great.
So advanced.
Honestly, I never thought. I always thought that even the hull of the original series Enterprise was nothing like what people thought it was, and that when I see them there with welding torches and welding plates together and stuff, that just doesn't work for me anymore. I mean, to me, that's like 19th century bridge construction. I mean, bridges you drive your car over. I could imagine that the hull on the original series Enterprise was grown on a skeletal structure of some kind. That it was literally grown.
You're saying on the J, you're speculating it's probably an organic hull composite.
It could be organic. It could be grown. I like any idea that's that goes beyond the ape brain. The ape brain that says that the struts on the original series Enterprise are too spindly. I've had people argue, and the J too. Those engines those struts could never support. One of the things that Matt and Roddenberry did on the original Enterprise is that they made the struts spindly looking. To me, that doesn't look like. I don't look at that and say, "Oh, those could never support those engines." The thrust, aside from the fact that there is no thrust coming from them.
Yeah.
When I look at it, because I'm a science fiction guy and I've read a lot of science fiction, I go, "Wow, these people obviously have a technology far beyond our own," and that's what that says to me. And I always thought that the heavying up of the engine struts was the ape brain kicking in later on. Oh, that has to be much heavier.
The concept, like you mentioned earlier, was to be a multi-generational vessel that included large parks, entertainment zones, and entire university campuses on board the ship. The ship was so large, in fact, that turbolifts were replaced by site-to-site transporters, which was pretty cool.
Really great idea. I obviously love the idea, but brings into question what if the power goes down, or what if the turbolifts as a backup. But that's too obvious.
Sure, of course.
Yeah. So I thought of another perspective. So if the ship is that large, and as you say, a city,
you might even have freeways on the ship where you could drive a car from one end to the other. I mean,
idea.
We'd mentioned entertainment zones and recreation. Now, my next question: we have holodecks in the next generation. What do you think would be the next advancement as far as recreation goes? What's the next step beyond a holodeck?
You don't need a holodeck anymore. As a matter of fact, it all take place in your head. I mean, you don't even really at this point, you don't even really need to leave your cabin. You could be on the bridge while sitting in your cabin. Look at us. We're having a meeting right now, and we're not meeting in the briefing room. I mean, where's it going to be in by the 26th century?
Do you think that
actually? The truth is that. It's like you're not going to have a bridge at all. You're just going to have a room, with a chair, toilet. It's not. That's not very interesting. Mostly, you don't even really need to press buttons at that point. I would say it's almost all implanted into your mind.
Neural interface and such.
Yeah, I mean, when I say a heads-up display, I mean a heads-up display in your head is your bridge. I mean, your head is your bridge.
So what you're saying, Doug, is the new uniform is just a dressing gown, a really comfy dressing gown.
Yeah. Oh, well, clothes. They're far beyond clothes at this point.
Officially, the Enterprise J crew is naked. That is official.
Yeah.
You heard it here first again.
Okay, so about the deflector dish, which we've talked about before, sort of off air, but the ship had a large Type 5 quantum spectator deflector dish array mounted on the front of the primary.
Did you say tater? Like a potato?
A
tater?
Quantum spectator deflector drive, yeah.
Potato powered, yeah.
When I did the design, I knew that because we were doing Enterprise, they would want to be able to draw a line from Archer ship directly to this ship so that casual viewers would see that they're related. And so the deflector went on the front of the saucer the same way as the NX.
And if you see in our renders, it's huge compared to like other ships. So
oh my God.
My question is, does it have more features? Do you think it could like real-time communication across galaxies or anything special that you see?
I mean, you probably can communicate through time, but the number one purpose of the ship is exploration of the universe and ourselves. We learn about ourselves. The more we learn about the universe, the more we know about ourselves. And that's the mission of the ship.
So the one appearance we got to see of the Enterprise J was its participation in the historical battle of Pyrkon 5, wherein the Federation successfully drove back the sphere builders into their transdimensional realm.
We kind of talked about this earlier. Do you think the ship might be self-aware? Like if it has the consciousness of the whole crew?
Yes. I love that idea. I love that idea.
Yeah, because
Doug
like
approved.
you see it with the M5 and stuff, but that's like failed technology. But every technology fails in the initial stages. So by
Well,
this,
failure is a part of success. I mean,
yep.
you can't possibly advance without making the mistakes first. I would love to see these really far out ideas for the Enterprise J be what it's all about. But I think that if we did it, it probably would have been pulled back a little more.
When you saw the interior of the J, which I think was not designed by you, it was designed by Lee Cole. What is that? Your mental image of the ship?
No, honestly, I think that I think that they built that little section for Archer, that's so he could relate to it. You know what I mean?
That's a very good
Oh.
idea.
Yeah, I don't think the ship looks like that. That isn't what I would want it to look like. What we had was extreme. I mean, we even had a plexi panel with backlights on it. I mean,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean, people are probably going to be carrying around. When I talk about, you'll have a personal HUD display that would be more akin probably to what we saw in Minority Report. Where you've got stuff floating all around you, and you're able to, slide it and pull it down and pull things like this right in front of you. Not unlike Iron Man. What Tony Stark does, but it's all built in. It's all built in. If there are consoles and there are interfaces, we're doing it because it's a legacy thing, and that you may be able to do all of your interfacing with the ship in your head, but it would probably be more fun to sit at a console, a sharp-looking console. Okay, well, that's it for Enterprise J, and tune in next time for part 2.